Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Across State Lines. I'm your host, Danielle. Thank you so much for tuning back into the podcast for episode 23, where today we will be covering two cases: the disappearance of baby Gabriel Johnson and the disappearance of Jhessye Shockley. Before we start this episode, I want to give a warning that these two cases do cover the abuse and probable deaths of children. So if you find that distressing, please skip this episode and join us next week for the case of Kathy Krausneck, which is a case I've been anticipating covering as I have a small connection to some of the people in the case. In December of 2009, Elizabeth Johnson packed up her son Gabriel and left her Arizona home, not telling her boyfriend Logan where she was going. Later, once found, Elizabeth tells authorities that she gave her son away to a local couple, but he never surfaced. Sadly, baby Gabriel has never been found, and his mother has never divulged where he might actually be. In October of 2011, 5-year-old Jhessye Shockley disappeared from her Arizona home, and one person stated that a girl matching her description was seen being put in a car by a woman, but she was never seen again. Despite this story, some shocking and heartbreaking details about Jessye's life came to light during the investigation into her disappearance, and the community and authorities alike began to look at her mother as a probable suspect. Sadly, like in the case of baby Gabriel, Jhessye has never been seen again, and her whereabouts are unknown. But before we dive into these two cases, I want to remind everybody that Across State Lines is available on all podcast streaming platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else that you might listen. If you are liking Across State Lines and would like to leave us a rating, a review, or a follow, it would be greatly appreciated. If you want to leave us any feedback, go to our website and send us an email. Thank you so much for listening, and now, let's dive into the cases of Gabriel Johnson and Jhessye Shockley. Logan McCurry and Elizabeth Johnson, residents of Tempe, Arizona, began dating in 2007, leading to a 2-year-long tumultuous relationship with frequent ups and downs. A year later, in 2008, the couple learned that they were expecting a child. The couple debated back and forth on whether or not to keep the pregnancy, but in the end, they decided that they would. On May 3rd, 2009, Gabriel Johnson was born. Shortly after Gabriel's birth, Elizabeth's behavior began to change. She was described as having frequent mood swings, threatening violence against her boyfriend and son, and often not tending to the baby's needs. Logan was concerned about the safety of his child and felt like Elizabeth was probably experiencing postpartum depression, and felt like the only way to ensure the safety of Gabriel was to leave Elizabeth. His plan was to leave the relationship in early December of 2009. And when Elizabeth learned of this, she first told Logan that he couldn't leave her. Then she changed her mind and said that if he left, he would have to take baby Gabriel with him. So that's what Logan did. He put the baby in his car and he left. At this point, with the couple not being married, Logan hadn't established his parental rights yet. As soon as Logan left with their child, Elizabeth called the cops and told them that her boyfriend had kidnapped their son. When the officer arrived at the scene and spoke to Logan, he told him that he would need to return the child to Elizabeth. This would be the last time that Logan would ever see his son. The next day, Logan went to the courthouse to petition for custody of Gabriel. In his petition, he wrote the following note for the judge. Quote, "She has said several times in the past that she doesn't want the baby. She's yelled and screamed at him when I would go to work. When I would go to work, I would put the baby in his room, and when I would get home 5 hours later, he would still be in the room with no changed diaper and crying, and I would ask her what she was doing, and she would just yell at me and say, 'Go shut that thing up.'" End quote. Despite this, the judge felt that the couple could work it out and went as far as to say, quote, "Stop being so mean to Elizabeth," to Logan. The judge established an order of joint custody between the parents, setting Logan's first pickup date as December 20th in order to celebrate Gabriel's first Christmas. When he arrived at Elizabeth's trailer to pick up Gabriel that winter day, no one answered, and he found the home to be empty. Logan repeatedly called Elizabeth to figure out her whereabouts, and when this didn't work, he took back to the courts. The next court date was set for December 28th, over a week away. Logan hadn't known that Elizabeth had already left Arizona 2 days earlier, taking her grandfather's 1995 Oldsmobile and telling her grandfather that she was going, quote, to take care of business. While Logan was searching for Elizabeth, he uncovered a Scottsdale couple who had known her. The wife, Tammy Smith, described Elizabeth when she first met her as looking tired and said that she could tell, quote, Elizabeth didn't want the baby. She had asked Elizabeth if she was open to adopting out the child, and she said that she was, but the father hadn't signed away his rights. The two women would exchange contact information, leading to a friendship. Tammy said that between December 9th and 18th, Elizabeth left Gabriel with her and gave her temporary custody of the child, signing over power of attorney. This plan to give custody to Tammy was ruined when Logan petitioned for custody himself. With Tammy's help, Logan discovered that Elizabeth was now in Texas and was given her new phone number. On December 27th, Elizabeth texted Logan. In this text, she claimed that she had killed their son and had dumped his body in a dumpster behind a motel in San Antonio. This prompted authorities in San Antonio to quickly search the area, but found no traces of the child or any signs of a homicide having taken place. They searched nearby landfills as well as the hotels Elizabeth had stayed in. Police in San Antonio began to dig into Elizabeth's timeline as she traveled across the state. Elizabeth had arrived in San Antonio on December 22nd, where she took daily photos of her son up until December 26th. Gabriel was described as looking lethargic in these photos, and in a very last picture, he was holding a bottle of Tylenol. It was said that on December 26th, the last day of the photos, Elizabeth left her child with a babysitter, claiming that she had a hair appointment. This babysitter would later go on to say that when she arrived to the hotel to watch the child, he appeared to be drugged and had a sad look on his face. When the babysitter asked what to do if Gabriel began to cry, Elizabeth told her that she already, quote, drugged him up with medicine, but if he began to cry, give him more to shut him up. The babysitter stated that before Elizabeth left, she was agitated, but when she came home hours later, she appeared to be much more relaxed and doubted that Elizabeth had went to a hair appointment at all. Soon after, authorities found Elizabeth's grandfather's car abandoned at a local Greyhound bus station, with the car seat still inside. They learned that Elizabeth had boarded a bus destined for Florida. After this, the judge awarded Logan full custody of the child, and a warrant was put out for Elizabeth's arrest. When the FBI got involved, they tracked Elizabeth down in Miami, Florida, and promptly arrested her. But Gabriel wasn't with her. Investigators asked her where the child was and brought up the text exchange between her and Logan a few days prior. Elizabeth said that she only told Logan she killed Gabriel to get back at him, and that she had given the child to a couple in a park in San Antonio. Adoption experts weighed in, saying that illegal underground adoptions were common in the area. In fact, one of the hotels that Elizabeth stayed in was often used for these underground adoptions. Elizabeth gave two versions of this story. One, that she encountered this couple by happenstance, and another, that she had arranged the meeting for 10 a.m. in the park on the 27th in order to hand Gabriel over. She claims that she had stayed with this couple for a few days, but had tried not to remember any significant details about them, like their surnames or what their car had looked like, so she couldn't find them again if she changed her mind. She stated that she could only remember the woman's first name was Cheryl, but she did not know the man's name. There was one piece of evidence that led Logan to believe this adoption story might be true. When Elizabeth was arrested, she was wearing an expensive ring that she did not own before she left Arizona. It was mentioned that jewelry was often used as payment in illegal adoptions when cash was lacking. Elizabeth was eventually charged with custodial interference for taking off with Gabriel, and before she was sentenced, the DA offered her a plea deal. If she were to tell them where the baby was, she wouldn't have to serve time at all. Elizabeth refused, and in December of 2012, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison, being credited with 3 years that she had already served. Elizabeth Johnson was released in 2014, and 3 years ago, she would give birth to another child. Baby Gabriel has never been found, and there have been no signs to where he could be. Investigators, while hoping that the adoption story was true, no longer believes that they will find baby Gabriel alive. Logan McCurry states that he, quote, wants to believe and chooses to believe that his son is still alive, being raised by another family. Logan and his family went on to hire a retired FBI agent in order to help find his son. This investigator said that he uncovered proof that a third party had arranged for the illegal adoption, but what this proof is has never been stated. Tammy Smith, the woman who Elizabeth had befriended, was also charged with forgery, custodial interference, and conspiracy. It was reported that Tammy had made several false statements to police and media and withheld important information that would have been pertinent to the case. Tammy claimed that this was untrue, but that she had falsified a document claiming that her cousin was actually Gabriel's father. She was convicted on all counts. If Gabriel Johnson were alive today, he would be turning 16 years old on May 3rd of this year. His father still holds out hope that he is being raised by another family in the Texas area and wishes to be reunited with him one day. Authorities are less hopeful, stating that they do not believe that Gabriel is alive any longer and had died at the hands of his mother. Now, let's dive into the case of Jhessye Shockley. Jhessye Joshua Shockley was a 5-year-old little girl living in Glendale, Arizona in 2011. Her 5 years of life hadn't been easy for her. Her home life was filled with turmoil and secrets that was continuously overlooked by those who were supposed to protect her. Jhessye and her 3 older siblings, aged 6, 9, and 13, had tried to stick together and support one another through constant abuse by their mother. But on October 11th, 2011, Jhessye would disappear and her siblings wouldn't ever see her again. Jessye's mother, Jerice Hunter, had left her home located on 43rd Avenue and Glendale Road on the afternoon of October 11th, heading to a nearby bank to cash a check. When she returned home, she called the police and claimed that upon returning, her front door was open and Jhessye was gone. She claims that Jhessye wandered away around 5 p.m., and her older siblings had no idea what had happened to her. Strangely, around the same time, a young girl matching Jessie's description was seen being placed into a car by an unknown woman. This woman was described as being 25 to 35 years old, African American, and the car was a black 4-door 1998 to 2000 Malibu Chevrolet, with the car being parked at Glendale Road and 45th Avenue. The woman had her hair pulled back into a bun and weighed about 120 pounds. It was stated that the young girl did not resist being put in the car. Going back a few years, before Jhessye was born, in 2005, Jessie's mother was charged in Vallejo, California with 5 felonies, 4 counts of corporal injury to a child, and 1 count of torture. Allegedly, she had whipped her 3 children with an extension cord and a belt and punched her son during a heated argument. Her son had stated that she routinely beat him with sticks. At this time, Hunter was married to a man named George Edward Shockley, who was a convicted sex offender. He also participated in beating the children and had failed to register as a sex offender. He would go on to be the father of Jhessye in 2006. At the time of Jessie's disappearance, George was in prison. At Hunter's trial, all of her children had stated that she abused them for years, and the judge had made the statement that Hunter, quote, never should have had children. Hunter was sentenced to only 8 years in prison and had only served 4 years before being released in 2010. During the time that she was in prison, her children had stayed with her relatives. When she was paroled, her children went back to live with her. Much of her family supported this decision, saying that she loved her children and had become a much better parent. After Jessie's disappearance, Her siblings had a story to share. They stated that weeks prior to their sister's disappearance, their mother had locked Jhessye inside of a closet and did not feed her. The siblings would attempt to sneak her food and water, and when they did, they found her covered in bruises and with a black eye, as well as patches of her hair pulled out. Her sisters claimed that she, quote, looked like a zombie. After some time, the sisters reported that the closet had begun to, quote, smell like dead people, with Hunter beginning to burn incense and deeply clean the apartment days before reporting Jhessye missing. The last day that Jhessye showed up for her kindergarten class was on September 22nd, where from then on she was absent, with Hunter claiming that she had pink eye and ringworm. This was never confirmed with a doctor, and Hunter had refused to take a polygraph test after Jessie's disappearance. Also, around the same time the siblings smelled the odor in the apartment, Hunter was seen purchasing bleach and other cleaning supplies at a local Walgreens. Hunter was arrested and subsequently let go because the authorities did not want to create a double jeopardy situation. They performed a search of the apartment and had collected evidence. Authorities began to search the Butterfield landfill in Tempe, stating that they had substantial evidence that her body had been placed in the trash due to a tip from Silent Witness. Despite the search lasting for months, Jessie's body has never been found. In September of 2012, Hunter was charged with the murder of her daughter and sentenced in 2015. Her extended family then went on to sue the state of Arizona, Glendale Police Department, and CPS for $10 million for negligence. They stated that it was the state's fault that Jhessye was placed once again with her mother and that they were grossly negligent. Jhessye has never been found, and it is unknown who the little girl who fit her description was, who was seen getting put into the car that day by an unknown female. It sounds like the state arrested and charged the right person for the death of Jhessye, but the truth behind the circumstances of her disappearance are still unknown, and her body has yet to be discovered. If alive today, Jhessye would be 19 years old. I had a little shock researching this story on a personal level. In 2009, I had worked at the very same apartment complex that Jhessye disappeared from as an assistant property manager 2 years prior to her disappearance. I don't believe that I had any encounters with the family, as they may not have lived there at the time, but it was very surreal to realize this, and that I had most likely walked the very same floors of the apartment that this situation happened in. With that personal element, it made researching this case a bit more surreal, and I took it to heart. So I knew when I started Across State Lines that I wanted to cover her case early. Hopefully one day her and Gabriel Johnson will be found, and those that loved them will be able to receive justice. Thank you so much for listening to Across State Lines, and we will be back next week to dive into another unsolved case. Please follow or subscribe to Across State Lines on your podcast listening platform so that way new episodes will drop directly into your listening feed. If you'd like to rate or review Across State Lines on whatever platform you listen to, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, and join us again next week.